everybody, I'm Vasel, and welcome to 5 games I played so you don't have to. I'm talking about 5 games here that I dislike. Not very enjoyable to talk about these, especially since the games today are games that I had high hopes and was excited about all 5 of them. That's kind of the common theme here. And yeah, everyone I played these with also in the studio, also not a big fan, so I'm the one talking about them. Here's the thing though. You might love these games. That's fantastic. I hope so, that people like some of these games. Then mention in the comments and let us know so you can give an alternate opinion. But these are just some thoughts I have on each of these games. So we're going to start off here with Bantam West. So Bantam West here, from Ike Brunicardi and Bantam Planet, is a sandbox Western-style game. And in this game, you're going to go around, you're going to go Wild West shootout with people. You're going to go out hunting for stuff in the desert. You're getting resources. You go in the saloon. You have a drink. You play poker. There's all kinds of things that you can do in this game. This is not the first Western sandbox game. That would be Western Legends. But this one here is very, very open. But there's some problems. First of all, the setup for this game is a bear, and the rule book is monstrously bad. It's just a horrifically bad rule book. Everything is kind of confusing, and the rule book kind of teaches you in like, hey, we're going to play through this scenario, then this scenario adds more rules, and this scenario adds more rules, and this one adds more rules. I'm like, well, where is this rule for whatever it might be? And I found the whole thing to be confusing. There's combat in the game. It's confusing and fiddly. You're adding these cards like this little combat deck, but it isn't particularly fun. There's lots of interesting things to do. I mean, I'll give it that. But like I said, the combat, I was never sure, like, how does movement work? I mean, there was like some basic things that took me the longest time to figure out how they work. But the idea of, I can go in the saloon and do this, or I can go over to the shop and buy more equipment, or I can go do these things. That all sounds fun. The problem is, when you go through each scenario, and each of these scenarios adds more and more rules, how do you onboard new people? Do you onboard them with the full game? Or do you then have to take pieces of the game out? It's just kind of not a great way to have this game set up. The goals are simple to do in the game. The problem is that a lot of the ways to get points or to finish goals are there, but a lot of fun things you can do, and you're like, I want to go do whatever that fun thing is, doesn't particularly seem that useful. And the closest thing I would compare this to that this game reminds me of as a sandbox game is Zaya, which I like. Zaya is a big space sandbox game, but that game sometimes you come into, you're like, what do I do? And I think Bantam West has that same problem. I mean, the exploration part is fun. The game looks pretty good for the most part, and there's a ton of content in this box. But the entire game is longer than it needs to be. And while I like the fun theming, I'm not sure that the effort to play Bantam West is worth it. So for me, I give this one a 6 out of 10. This is the highest of the 5 games I'm talking about today because I might try this one again in the future. This is the only one on this list that I'll play again in the future. I just don't know that the effort is worth it. All right, next we have the Battle for Sampo. Now, the Battle for Sampo, you are in an enchanting realm of Kalevala, where you'll guide a village as a hero of unparalleled might. This is designed by Stephen Baker. You might have heard of him. He's on several games, HeroQuest, HeroScape. And the company is GameStay Oi. This game is luck. That's a big problem in this game. You're trying to build these combos and getting resources. Like a game where you're going around on a trip should also have resources involved in it. And getting these resources and getting things in this game feels like a chore more so than actual fun in the game. There's a dice tower in the game. Huzzah! This is that dice tower that has like a split down the middle, so you're throwing something in and it comes out one of the 4 sides. First of all, at least in my copy, it favors one of those 4 sides, but it doesn't feel particularly gripping in this game. You're trying to look around at this to play the game. There's this search that you're going on for the golden Sampo, and it feels a bit random, right? And the deeds of fame and the different objectives are kind of a huzzah moment, like hooray, I got a deed, or something. But they also feel lucky. Battle is a bit complicated. I think it slows the game down. fighting a creature as opposed to using a war band, and there's different rules for each. There's a lot of turns where you're just kind of going, but there's a lot of, hey, I'm just flipping cards. And I mean, I want to emphasize that there's so much of these flipping of cards and things, and this luck seems to outweigh everything else. Once the golden Sampo is found, it becomes a game of keep away, and it just feels clunky. It feels like an older game, and there's nothing there that keeps me wanting to go back. Again, and this is a theme of a lot of these games, is just that the complexity of the rules and the different things that are involved doesn't make a simple game, and it doesn't add to the fun of the game. So Battle of Sampo for me is a 5 out of 10. The Glade. The Glade is a game from Richard Breese and R&D Games. Now, The Glade is a game that when I first saw it, I was very impressed because R&D Games Richard Breese used a very specific artist, and they did not in this one. This one looks honestly better than their other games. So I was very excited. I like a lot of Richard Breese games like Cathedral and stuff like that. This one is clearly an abstract game. You're creating sets of 1 to 4 forest tiles. And when you make a set of tiles, it has to have at least one characteristic in common, but all the rest are different. So if you have 4 green tiles, but then they have to be 4 different animals and 4 different leaves on there. Now, this is an abstract game, right? And that sounds interesting. I went through it. It sounded interesting until you play the game. By far, the biggest problem with the Glade is how it looks. I'm not saying it looks bad, but it is so difficult. They use similar colors. They use similar shapes. You are sitting there, I mean, because the whole thing is like, okay, these are the same. These are different. Nope, that one's the same. I can't do that. Okay, these are the same. These are different. Nope, I can't do that either. And the luck of the things that you draw is way too high for a game where placement matters this much. And note, I'm talking about the simpler game of the two. There's another side where things that match matter. The board makes you go cross-eyed as you look at it. And the meaningful choices in this game, it sounds like there's meaningful choices, but the meaningful choices aren't like, ooh, where and what can I do? But it's more like, what can I even do? And because it's kind of like a what can I even do, I'm not sure that it's worth it. The rules take a while to explain, and they're better off like showing rather than saying, if that makes sense. There's like 8 pages, a lot of rules and stuff, but it's pretty simple's a strong word, but it's not that complex, but it sounds complex. And it doesn't do anything that a simpler game like Quirkle just would do on its own. And that's the problem with the Glade. I think at its heart, as you put out these different matches in the middle and you get mushrooms and you do things in it, there's some interesting ideas there, but the interface and how it works turns off 9 out of 10 people. It really does. And some people, like literally, I don't think could play it because of how hard it is to figure out. The people who don't have a problem with it, or people who will plow through and do it anyway, despite that, are going to find a big game that has really, really, really random draws, and it just doesn't feel like you're making any cool, interesting choices over the course of the game. I really dislike this one. A 4 out of 10. That's the Glade. Mercurial, and I have the deluxe edition, which is kind of weird because, you know, this cover here is fine, but the actual cover of the game is really gorgeous. And I'm going to start out here by saying the Mercurial, designed by David Go and published by Good Games, is an absolutely stunningly gorgeous game. I was very excited about this because the artwork on these cards and all through it is really, really terrific. This is a really fun game. And so in this game, well, you're in Valinir, an otherworldly land, home to devastation, unstable magics, and now you. You're a mage in this game, and you are trying to control over chaos by manipulating dice and building combos. And that's what this game is. You're manipulating dice. You're going to get different dice, and you're going to manipulate these dice and use these dice to get spells together and cast these spells to get skills and eventually get points in various ways. Here's the problem. I think the artwork is stunning. I think the iconography is less so. And I can even include that with the rules are well written, but they're not intuitive teaching at all. And then there's all these weird rules, you know, oh, there's this and that and acuity and things like that. And I'm not sure that stuff is going to help understand the game. I mean, they're actually asymmetrical characters, and when you play this, but it takes a while to figure that they even are asymmetrical. here's the thing: you're playing some combos, but the game feels like a souped-up Century Spice Road. Century Spice Road is a game in which you are getting cards. You play those cards to get these cubes, and then you use these cubes to get combos. It's a great game. This feels like that amped to 11 because you are doing this to get that to do these, except you feel like you are going in slow motion. Nothing in this game has pizzazz to it. It takes way too long. It's 45 to 90 minutes here is not correct. It's going to be longer than that. The rolling dice and getting spells and recycling spells and getting acuity and difference between the classes and all that stuff is going to overwhelm people, but I don't think the gameplay is deep enough beyond that. There's non-turns in a sense, or boring turns, and a slow burn to get things doesn't help it. There's a whole thing in here about equilibrium, because when you do cast spells, they are rune or restore, and you want to cast a lot of each to get points, what have you. Or equilibrium, have them completely balanced. That sounds cool. A, it's a pain to do. B, the rewards aren't that great, and you're just safer to just go on ruin and restore. And even the ruin and restore, one gives more points than the other, but there's more cards in deck. I'm not sure about how all the math works. And there's also even a slight runaway leader problem. You start doing well in this game, it's hard for other people to catch up. It's a pretty game, but it is not a game I want to play again. There's a lot of good ideas in here. It just feels like there's a lack of streamlining. So that's Mercurial, a 5 out of 10. Age of Comics, the golden years. Wow, of all the games I'm excited about, this was one that I was really pumped about. In this game, the Golden Age of Comics, and you can see on here, the artwork is fantastic. You are going around and, well, you're going to make your own little comic industry. You're hiring artists and you're hiring writers and you're making comics in different genres of the pulp fiction type and horror and things like that. And it's a worker placement game, and you're using your editor meeples to do different tasks. But I don't like it. So there's a lot of cool concepts in this game, but none of them really feel fully realized. When I'm done playing this, I'm like, we're missing something. The game just seems to be missing something. But I think I can narrow it down to a lot of little problems I have with the game. There's matching genres. When you make a new comic, you want the writer and the artist to match that kind of genre. Okay, that makes sense, right? But that's the only important thing. They really should match. If you don't match them, you're losing out. And so on turn one, you will have one card that matches a genre, a comic that you're trying to do. And if you draw the other person, you are already a leg up on everybody else. And then there's kind of controlling these genres. And if I have more comics of a genre than you, I can take control of that genre to some degree. And that's kind of a boring concept, because if the first person does it, gets one. Then the first person gets two, gets it, and they have it the rest of the game. There's these rip-off comics, which is really funny in theory, right? You know, this whole idea of just stealing other people's work and putting out these fake comics, these counterfeit comics. There's no reason to do that. Now, to be fair, I don't think you should do counterfeit comics, right, or anything. But they could have pushed the funniness. They should have looked a little different, even more so. I think they changed one minor thing about them. But they should have looked a little bit different in the game. But they don't really give you any big benefit to make you want to do them. You can ignore those counterfeit comics, and I don't think you're missing any part of the game. Because I thought, oh, wow, that'd be a funny idea. Counterfeit comics, I'm sure there's a downside. You get caught, you get in trouble, or whatever. They don't make as much money or what have you, but they do something for you. No, not really. It just feels like something that was put into the game as extra stuff. The economic, it's really kind of an economic game as you are making these points and stuff, but the money is kind of a weird thing, because at the beginning of the game, you're kind of strapped for money. At the end of the game, you just have tons. They didn't do a very good job at balancing that out. And the worker placement, where you're putting workers out to do things, never really gets that interesting. There are more spots that open up, but there's never really, I don't know, it just feels kind of sluggish to put them out. And selling the papers or going around in the city, that's a pretty critical thing. You can get a lot of points that way, and it feels a little luck-based. Like I said, it's just a bunch of little things, but the game has me feeling a little empty. Like, the game is a solid Euro-style economic game. I get that. And the theme is amazing. And I don't know that the theme needs to match up perfectly, but it does feel like there's a little bit more luck about drawing the cards that you might want to get. And the decisions don't seem to be particularly interesting. You're like, at the beginning of the game, there's like 3 different choices that you should do right away, and you pick them. And then watching the comics go up in price and down in price, that's kind of interesting. And there's a lot of cool concepts, but for me, this one is a pass. It is a 5 out of 10. So there you go, folks. Age of Comics and Mercurial and the Glade and the Battle for Sampo and Bantam West. All games I was very pumped about, and unfortunately, all games I no longer wish to play. But you might like them. Like I said at the beginning of the video, tell us in the comments if you do. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. Hey folks, thanks for watching another one of our videos. If you like our videos, if you like our channel, you would love to game with us at one of our conventions. Check out Dice Tower Cruise, Dice Tower East, and Dice Tower West. Fantastic conventions where we play games with wonderful people, a humongous library, and lots of other events and stuff. Also, don't forget to check out our channel, like and subscribe. I'm Tom Vasel.